In this chaotic world, enemies seem inescapable. Whether workplace rivals, romantic interests turn sour, or those whose ideologies clash with your own, you may feel tempted to meet fire with fire, to lash out and fight back. But there is a way to utterly disarm your foes without raising a fist. The ancient Stoic philosophers knew that the greatest weapon is the mind itself. By adopting the following 13 timeless principles, you can turn the tables and leave your adversaries trembling, all without compromising your integrity. 1. Learn your enemy inside and out. Knowledge is power, and few things are more powerful than truly understanding your enemy's mindset. Too often we make assumptions about their motivations when the reality is far more nuanced. A Stoic recognizes that every person's beliefs and actions are shaped by their unique experiences and worldview. Before you can disarm an adversary, you must first seek to comprehend what drives them from the inside out. Resist the urge to dismiss them as simply evil or crazy. Even the most misguided individuals have an internal logic that governs their decisions. Learn to analyze their background, their influences, their deepest insecurities and desires. What fears or traumas molded the person they've become? What perceived injustices or ideologies fuel their animosity towards you? With this insight, their actions will make sense, and you can formulate a strategy to speak to their core humanity. The deeper you delve, the more you'll recognize that beneath the harsh exterior, your adversary is still a human being struggling with the same fundamental issues we all face. This realization cultivates compassion, and compassion is disarming in itself. Your foe expects hatred and judgment, but your understanding will raise doubts, slowly charming their defenses until they question everything. 2. Choose your battles wisely. A wise warrior knows that the ultimate victory lies in avoiding unnecessary combat altogether. Too often, we allow our egos to goad us into petty feuds that only leave both sides drained and bitter. But the Stoic path teaches us to be selective about which battles we choose to engage in. Not every perceived slight or ideological disagreement is worth squandering your precious resources and resolve. Before charging headlong into conflict, take a step back and assess the stakes. Will pursuing this vendetta bring you tangible benefits, or is it merely an exercise in pride? Is the energy required to defeat this particular foe better invested elsewhere in your life's true priorities? The ancient philosophers advocated distinguishing between what we can control and what is ultimately impermanent, learning to let go of the latter. Could you simply walk away without meaningful loss? If the conflict is indeed unavoidable and the rewards outweigh the costs, then forge ahead, but with a resolute, cerebral strategy. Half-hearted efforts born of rash impulses are the surest path to defeat. Approach each battle as a general commanding their forces, committing wholeheartedly with clear objectives and contingencies. This mental discipline and careful husband of your powers appears deceptively casual, yet stems from a core of unshakable focus. Your foes will find themselves dismayed by your uncanny calm and precision when they expected reckless emotion. 3. Speak with calm and clarity. In the heat of conflict, one of the most effective weapons you can wield is precise, articulate communication. While your enemy shouts bitter insults fueled by turbulent feelings, you remain an unwavering bastion of logic and reason. Each syllable drips with poise and self-assurance, sapping their fury and eroding their stance like water against sandstone. The Stoics taught that by vigilantly monitoring our internal emotional state and countering toxic impulses, we cultivate sovereign control of our minds and tongues. Where your adversary lobs vitriol and personal attacks, you respond with facts, nuance, and verbal precision. You do not rise to their attempts at provocation, but continue pointing out flaws and inconsistencies in their narrative with unrelenting impartiality. The simple act of remaining level-headed while they spiral into emotional chaos hands you a psychological high ground. Furthermore, learn to crisply and succinctly lay out your position and the rationale behind your principles. Speak not with the breathless ramblings of one desperately trying to convince themselves, but with the calm, matter-of-fact articulation of an inviolable truth. By refusing to match the frenzied energy of your foes, you suggest a profound disconnect from their feverish mindset. This character, combined with unapologetically owning your stance, gradually instills seeds of doubt in even the most ardent opponent. They will find themselves unnerved by your stoic demeanor amid the passion of their convictions. 4. Find the path of mutual understanding. Even in the throes of opposition, there are often kernels of common ground to be uncovered if you approach with an open mind. A core tenet of Stoicism is recognizing that we are all part of the same human family, flawed yet striving for purpose and fulfillment. If you can establish areas of agreement, it becomes exponentially harder for your adversary to vilify you. Seek out the places where your ideologies and goals overlap, no matter how small. Perhaps you both desire security for your loved ones or share a love of nature. Maybe you mutually reject corruption or have been failed by the same systemic injustices. Identify these islands of compatibility and hone in on them relentlessly in your discourse. The more you highlight the philosophical crossroads you share, the less justification for enmity remains. At the same time, strive to articulate and validate any reasonable facets of their position that resonate as true. There is nuance and complexity to even the most ostensibly repugnant of views. By acknowledging whatever partial realities are hidden beneath the distortions, you humanize the divide and make room for your counterpoint to be genuinely considered. An adversary who feels truly heard often opens their mind in return. Ultimately, the path of mutual understanding is one of empathy, nuance, and emotional evolution. Your goal is to transcend pointless hostility and unite in the aspects you hold sacred. With patient, persistent gardening of the connective threads between you, consuming animosities often wither for lack of narrative sustenance. Though difficult, few things strike more fear in the heart of an enemy than the revelation that you are not foes, but fractious allies. 5. Appeal to their inner values. We all possess an innate sense of ethics and integrity, shaped by the moral education of our personal upbringings and chosen belief systems. Even those whose actions seem most reprehensible often operate under a skewed moral framework that allowed them to self-justify their misdeeds. The key is uncovering the values your enemy genuinely holds dear, then eloquently revealing the contradictions between those stated virtues and their current course. Perhaps they claim to revere truth and justice, yet their aggression is founded on misinformation and false assumptions. Politely challenge them with verified facts, all the while expressing empathy that they were clearly misled. Declare that, as a person of integrity, you trust that confronting these difficult realizations is important to them. You are not lecturing but revealing, giving them the opportunity to realign with their own principles. Or maybe they position themselves as protectors, yet their callousness has caused immense pain. Reframe the narrative to show how their actions, however unintentionally, prevented them from being the heroes they envisioned. When their eyes begin to open, they will face two paths: doubling down to preserve their ego, or renouncing wrongdoings to reclaim moral authority. With deft conversational jujitsu, you steer them towards the latter by appealing to their idealized self-image. Done skillfully, this approach can crack the facade of even the most dogmatically entrenched adversaries. Few things erode resolve faster than the creeping self-doubt that one has abandoned their own stated virtues and better nature. As this gnaws away at their foundations, the future you paint of redemptive reconciliation with their values becomes increasingly alluring. Couch your path not as defeat, but as the chance to reawaken as their highest selves. 6. Use humor to diffuse tensions. Shared laughter holds a potent, almost alchemical power to heal rifts and realign adversaries towards more harmonious mindsets. By deploying well-timed humor, you can diffuse highly charged emotional situations and guide those involved towards more rational, less defensive mental spaces. The key is reading the room and exercising careful judgment over when and how to inject levity. Casual quips over beers after a heated meeting can rapidly smooth simmering tensions, but poorly timed attempts at comedy during the heat of conflict often inflame resentments. You must navigate these moments with nuanced sensitivity, erring on the side of mature discretion. Once windows of opportunity arise, engage your wit and willingness to laugh at the perfectly imperfect human condition you all find yourselves entangled within. Allow the humorous commentary to gradually escalate through a collaborative dynamic of playful roasting and absurdist embellishments, unearthing the fundamental silliness underpinning the entire ordeal. As laughter becomes the shared lingua franca, Previous hostilities lose their emotional charge and transformative perspective emerges. The ancient philosophers understood that humor is a profound psychological tool for transcending the ego and its petty attachments. When opponents descend into cycles of laughter at the cosmic ironies of their struggled conflict, the grudges anchoring them to adversarial roles become harder to justification. They begin to reconnect over their shared space as jesters stumbling through a richly absurd reality, opening new vistas for resolution. And once that door is cracked open, your goal is to widen it towards realigned interests through empathetic persistence. 7. Offer empathy. At the heart of resolving any conflict lies the ability to cultivate empathy, to make a concerted effort to understand your adversary's perspective and the experiences that shaped it. The Stoics believed that misunderstandings and animosity often stem from a failure to appreciate the common hopes, fears, and sufferings that unite all human beings. Rather than dismissing your enemy's grievances and motivations, endeavor to analyze them with an open mind and heart. Though their actions may seem abhorrent to you, strive to discern the relatable roots from which they emerged. What injustices or trials sculpted their worldview? Which psychological vulnerabilities drive their behavior? You need not agree with their conclusions, but gaining insight into their origins reveals our shared frailties. As you explore their emotional landscape without judgment, actively narrate and validate the feelings you uncover, the pain, anger, confusion, or hurt that primed them for the path they've chosen. Doing so fosters an environment of mutual understanding where perspectives can be exchanged more openly. Your adversary will likely expect derision, but will find themselves disarmed by your empathetic consideration of their innermost experiences. From that space of mutual vulnerability, you can begin to rehumanize the conflict itself. Stoic philosophy teaches that we are all unfolding threads in the great tapestry of life, subjected to fortunes and misfortunes not of our choosing. Could you have reached their beliefs had you faced their tribulations? Could they have adopted your stance through your experiences? Approaching with this humility suspends accusations and shifts the framing from adversaries to traveling companions. Ultimately, offering empathy without sacrificing your principles creates bridges over gaps of division. It demonstrates an evolved maturity that commands respect, even from embittered foes. And once they feel truly seen and understood as individuals, the prospect of resolving conflict through shared wisdom becomes less daunting. You shatter their mental model of you as an enemy and become a trusted guide to navigating their demons together. 8. Embrace the art of compromise. Scorched earth, uncompromising stances may seem unassailably principled in the moment, but they inevitably breed escalating cycles of retaliation and destruction. The most revered Stoic philosophers understood that in many conflicts, the greatest victory lies in strategically surrendering terrain, finding the malleable compromise that preserves your core interests while respecting those of your adversaries. Rigidity and absolutist stances seduce with their moral simplicity and protective armor against self-doubt, but they also blind one to the nuances and context of each unique situation. The Stoic approach is one of rational pragmatism, carefully analyzing circumstances with an open mind to find creative solutions palatable to each side's key needs. While firmly upholding your non-negotiable ethics, learn to identify which superficial preferences can be conceded without unraveling your center. The masterful conflict negotiator does not view compromises as losses, but as adroit maneuvers that preserve longevity and manage escalating tensions. By making judicious concessions on less critical fronts, you lower emotional defenses and model a willingness to make the process a collaborative exploration rather than a zero-sum overpowering. This disarms stubbornness and creates an even playing field for dialogue. 9. Seek external aid without shame. Even the most seasoned Stoic sages understood that at times we must humble ourselves and seek wise external counsel to resolve deep-seated personal conflicts. Unshakable self-reliance is an admirable ideal, but also risks blinding us to our own biases and emotional blind spots. An impartial third party can provide the objective clarity and creative perspective required to loosen ingrained knots. Do not allow pride or the stigma of airing private disputes to prevent you from engaging respected confidants, mentors, or professional mediators. The ability to recognize one's limitations and earnestly seek guidance is a strength, not a weakness. Stoic philosophy prizes reason over ego. If existing methods prove ineffective at resolving a conflict, the rational course is exponentially expanding your available wisdom. When enlisting this outside aid, approach with radical transparency regarding your role in the conflict and a commitment to personal growth. Provide full context without excuses, directly owning your contributions to the animosity. Then expand your aperture by explicitly requesting they challenge any distortions or unrealistic expectations clouding your judgment. The goal is not validation, but the unvarnished truth that allows objective strategizing. With this openness to external insight, seemingly intractable conflicts often unravel into new pathways. A trusted mentor may recognize deep-seated personal insecurities or fears driving your defensiveness. A counselor might reframe the conflict as a catalyst for addressing unresolved traumas or heal long-festering emotional wounds. Or an experienced mediator could devise novel routes for stakeholder dialogue that your subjective view overlooked. Do not underestimate the power of qualified third-party perspectives in revealing obscured angles. 10. Practice forgiveness. For all their vaunted mastery over perception and emotion, even the ancient Stoics understood that certain transgressions make forgiveness a monumental personal challenge. When we have been deeply wronged or made to suffer immense injustice, resentments can linger like clusters of inoperable shrapnel, flaring in chronic agony, no matter how fervently we pursue detached rationality. It is during these moments of intense personal hurt that the Stoic practice of forgiveness becomes most arduous yet crucial. Left to fester, toxic resentments only breed greater internal anguish, continually re-victimizing us over actions we cannot change. They drain our energies and contort our worldviews into caustic bitterness. Ultimately, they transform us into belligerent mirror images of those who originally wronged us. This process need not happen swiftly. Indeed, for deep wounds it may take years of committed inner work to fully release oppressive resentments, but we must remain unwavering in our intentions, utilizing cognitive reframing, journaling, meditation, or whatever practices allow us to gradually dilute the venom until only understanding remains. Each step alleviates burdens and returns lightness to our spirits, and upon reaching the summit of true forgiveness, we become virtually impervious to further conflict. 11. Seek growth from the ashes of conflict. Though painful in the throes, the inevitability of conflict in life represents an initiation into wisdom and elevated perspective. The Stoics believed that by developing capabilities to navigate adversity with grace, we not only resolve the challenges at hand, we accrue resilience that allows us to circumvent future suffering. When you find yourself ensnared in the chaos of animosity, recognize the situation as a trial by fire, burning away delusions and half-truths to reveal your authentic mettle. Painful tests demand focusing not on assigning blame or antagonizing, but on maintaining your virtue and seeking the lesson within the turmoil. Perhaps the conflict reveals aspects of your character in need of refinement, insecurities that warp your judgment, unconscious biases to overcome, or maladaptive coping tendencies. Stoic philosophers did not seek to eliminate difficult emotions like anger or grief, but cultivated the self-awareness to experience them without causing further harm. Could this conflict catalyze greater consciousness? Or maybe the agitation serves as a mirror, reflecting back detrimental patterns inherited from authoritarian parenting, trauma, or cultural dogmas in need of re-examining. Society inculcates many unhealthy default settings around conflict. This agitation could be calling you to update yours with more enlightened approaches aligned with your individual values. 12. Set healthy boundaries. While the Stoic ethos emphasizes avoiding conflict where possible through patience and de-escalation, there inevitably arise certain individuals who remain immovable in their disruptive conduct, no matter your approach. For such bad faith actors committed to continual animosity, you must cultivate the judiciousness to establish firm boundaries. Setting and enforcing reasonable boundaries does not represent capitulation or conflict avoidance. Rather, it stems from a grounded sense of identity and the self-respect to demand basic reciprocated courtesies. Just as you strive to grant adversaries good faith presumptions of rational intent, You are permitted to remove that presumption from those whose consistent behaviors belie it. When establishing these boundaries, do so through a clear-headed, non-negotiable stance. Articulate in plain language which unacceptable actions or disrespectful conduct will no longer be tolerated. Outline the specific consequences that will be enacted should these lines continue being crossed. Then reinforce this equanimity through calm self-assurance and steadfast follow-through if required. Know that this represents a principled last recourse, not punitive antagonism. Healthy boundaries preserve your dignity and model the comportment you expect from others. Those capable of self-reflecting may recognize their transgressions and self-correct now that firmer ground rules are in place. And those who choose to remain unchecked quickly identify you as someone unshakable who should not be trifled with going forward. Either outcome reduces needless conflict while empowering you to curate healthier spaces. 13. Remember, you control your reactions. At the core of Stoic philosophy lies a powerful truth that while we cannot control the rush of stimuli life flings at us, we alone govern our interpretations and resulting responses. This realization is not just intellectually liberating, but a robust framework for conducting ourselves amidst conflicts with poise and disarming mastery. When anger flares towards those who have wronged you, you always retain the choice of how to engage that injurious energy. You can internalize and nurture those resentments until they morph into all-consuming fury and retaliation, or you can explore the roots of those emotions with honesty, extracting their wisdom while allowing the rest to dissipate harmlessly. True strength lies in honoring the feeling's moral message without remaining entrapped by its narrative distortions. When fear arises at potential consequences of a heated conflict escalating, you decide whether to surrender to panic and rash overreactions or respond with calculated, values-aligned strategy. A commitment to crafting purposeful responses, even amidst volatility, births a feeling of unrufflable centeredness in your presence. And when inevitable insults or provocations detonate, you alone determine whether to combust alongside them or opt to defuse through unflappable stoicism. Mastering your reaction script, formulated through rigorous self-examination, prevents being impulsively baited into unbecoming conduct, misaligned with your integrity. If you have made it this far, comment down below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the knowledge from this video. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.